I never imagined that the end of the world would start like this, silent, methodical, and unstoppable. The universe didn't just come for us. It swallowed us whole. I was having coffee. It wasn't even anything special. A quick pick before a meeting. The world was spinning on like it always had. People walking the streets, cars rushing by, and the hum of the city in full swing. And then, like a switch being flipped, everything changed. One moment, everything was normal. And the next, absolute chaos. I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't like the movies. It wasn't some giant, flashy, planet-crushing attack. It started with silence. A brief moment of stillness in the air, like the whole world held its breath. Then the sky shattered. That was the first thing I remember clearly. The sky breaking open. No warning, no sound, just a crack through the blue, as if someone had torn a hole in the fabric of reality itself. And through that tear came the ships. Huge, silent, like something out of a nightmare. We couldn't even comprehend what we were looking at. There were no flying saucers, no cartoonish ships. These ships were something else entirely, monolithic, sleek, and unnatural. They moved faster than anything we could fathom, descending from above with an eerie calm that made my stomach drop. And then, it all erupted. The first explosion came with no warning, no air raid sirens. Just the ground beneath me shuddering, a violent tremor that made everything crack and split apart. The walls of my office collapsed, the floor gave way, and everything went dark. I remember crawling through the dust, gasping for breath, thinking that this was some kind of attack, a terrorist strike, maybe. But as I dragged myself through the wreckage, I saw it something I couldn't have prepared myself for. There was nothing left to call for help. No government, no military response, nothing. The invasion didn't follow any strategy we understood. There were no speeches, no demands, just destruction. Their ships didn't just fire at us, they obliterated entire cities in a single strike. Buildings fell, people screamed, and the whole world seemed to crumble beneath our feet. It wasn't a war, it was a slaughter. I didn't know where my family was. I didn't know if anyone was alive. The chaos was too loud, too confusing. The days blurred together after the first few hours. I saw people running in the streets, trying to flee, but there was nowhere to run to. There was no place left that was safe. The aliens' technology was so far beyond ours that we couldn't even mount a defense. The military didn't stand a chance. The bombs they dropped had no effect on the alien ships. They were invincible. I don't remember when I decided to stop hiding. I don't remember when the fear shifted into something else, something cold and angry. But one day, as I walked through the ruins of what used to be a thriving city, I realized something. Humanity wasn't finished yet. It couldn't be. In the midst of the destruction, I found a group of survivors, other people who hadn't given up yet. It wasn't a militia. It wasn't an army. Just a handful of us, huddled together for warmth, for safety, for something that felt like hope. We didn't have weapons. We didn't have answers. We had nothing but the will to survive. We were all lost. We were all afraid. But somehow, in that broken world, I found the resolve to stand tall. I remember the first time we struck back. We didn't know what we were doing. No plans, no strategy, just a desperate attempt to give ourselves a fighting chance. We took whatever we could find, weapons, tools, scraps from alien technology, and anything that could be used to cause damage. The plan, to hit one of their outposts. We didn't know if it would work, but we had to try. The alternative was to die quietly, to let them wipe us out without a fight. The mission was chaos. We were outnumbered, outgunned, and entirely unprepared for what we faced. But somehow, we did it. We sabotaged one of their energy generators. It wasn't a victory by any stretch. It was a small attack, a tiny cut on their vast, invincible forces. But in that small moment, I felt something I hadn't in days. Hope. Hope. That maybe we could do this. Maybe we could survive. Maybe we could fight back. And from that moment on, I realized one thing. We weren't done yet. They might have the technology, the power, the numbers, but we had something more. The will to fight. We were human. And no matter what, we were not going down without a fight. In the beginning, we fought with nothing but scraps, and our enemies had everything. But it's funny, when you're pushed to the edge, that's when human ingenuity shines brightest. It was only a few weeks since the day the world ended. The alien invaders had torn through Earth like a storm, leaving nothing but devastation in their wake. I remember the fear in the eyes of the survivors, the same fear I felt. It was as though we were all waiting for the inevitable, that we would be hunted down, picked off one by one, and erased from existence. But we had something they didn't, something that made us dangerous. The ability to adapt. To survive against all odds. We had nothing left. No government. No infrastructure. Just a handful of people who refused to lie down and let the invaders win. But with those people, I began to see something in the making, a spark of resistance. I never asked to lead. Hell, I didn't want to. But when the survivors turned to me for guidance, I couldn't back down. I wasn't the best, hell. I wasn't even a military strategist, but I was the one who had been there when it all started. The one who had survived. The one who knew how to think under pressure. That was enough to get us started. The first few days of regrouping were chaotic. We were scared, disorganized, and at the mercy of the invaders' watchful eyes. But we weren't stupid. We knew that every day we survived was one day closer to figuring out how to fight back. So, we started. Small raids on their outposts, scavenging their technology, stealing what we could to understand how they operated. We learned quickly. The aliens' weapons were advanced far beyond anything we could comprehend, but their systems had flaws. There were weaknesses, gaps in their defense. We started with their tech. Alien technology wasn't just powerful, it was something else. It was elegant, efficient. Even after months of scavenging their equipment, we still hadn't unlocked its full potential. But we didn't need to. All we needed were the basics. Power cores, energy shields, data drives. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I still remember the first time we successfully reverse-engineered one of their communication devices. We had managed to steal a piece of their tech from a crashed ship, and one of our engineers, Carter, spent days tinkering with it. I didn't understand half of what he was doing, but he was relentless. And when we finally managed to intercept one of their communications, I remember the feeling of triumph. It was proof. Proof that we could do this. We had no military, no power, no control over the world anymore. But we had the most important thing, the will to fight. The moment Carter handed me that device, our strategy began to take shape. We weren't just scavengers anymore. We were soldiers. Soldiers fighting back with whatever we had at our disposal. We could sabotage their infrastructure, disrupt their communications, and hit them where it hurt the most, by taking their technology and turning it against them. The first real strike we planned was bold. We knew the aliens had a communications relay station about 50 miles from our hideout. It wasn't heavily guarded, but it was essential to their operations. If we could knock it out, even temporarily, it would cause them enough disruption to slow their advance. It was a risk, but the risk of doing nothing was even worse. We split into teams, each with a clear objective. One team to infiltrate and plant the explosives, another to act as a diversion, and the third to exfiltrate with whatever intelligence we could gather. It wasn't a perfect plan, but we were out of time. Every minute counted. The mission was more dangerous than we anticipated. We had never faced such direct resistance from the aliens, but our strategy, our ability to think on our feet, kept us one step ahead. We used their technology against them. Cloaking devices, jamming signals, and makeshift weapons, powered by stolen energy cores. We didn't have much, but we made it count. I'll never forget the sound of the explosion when we hit the communications relay. The blast was enough to send shockwaves through the alien station, but it wasn't enough to destroy it completely. The aliens would rebuild. But we had done more than sabotage their equipment. We had sent a message. Humanity was still here, still fighting. And for the first time, I saw it in the eyes of my team. Hope. But with every victory came a heavier burden. As the leader of this fractured group, I felt the weight of their expectations. Every success meant we had to raise the stakes. We couldn't just survive, we had to do more. We had to keep fighting, keep striking, keep showing the aliens that we were a threat. But with every plan, with every operation, the doubt began to creep in. What was the cost of defying them? How many more lives would we lose before we won? I saw it in their faces too, the fear that this might be the mission. We didn't return from the knowledge that if we failed, there might be no coming back. Still, I pressed on. We pressed on. There was no going back. As the days went by, I started to see our group change. We were no longer just survivors, we were fighters, united in purpose. And as the mission to take back Earth grew closer, so did my understanding of what leadership meant. It wasn't about knowing all the answers. It was about the willingness to make the tough calls, to lead by example, and to stand firm in the face of insurmountable odds. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all of us. And no matter what it took, I would lead them to victory. Because humanity hadn't given up yet. And we never would. They said we didn't have a chance. They said we were doomed from the start. But as I stand here, staring into the heart of the alien fleet, I know one thing for sure. Humanity doesn't go down without a fight. The final battle had arrived, and the weight of it pressed down on me like a heavy stone. We had come so far, clawing our way out of the wreckage, piece by piece. But this was it. The end of everything we had worked for. If we succeeded, humanity would survive. If we failed, there would be no tomorrow. The alien fleet loomed ahead of us, an intimidating force of technological superiority, each ship a testament to their power. They had wiped out cities, wiped out armies, and yet here, we were humanity's last stand. Our mission was simple, yet impossible. Strike at the heart of their fleet, destroy their command center, and cripple their power structure. Do it quickly, do it decisively, or we would never have a second chance. The plan was risky. It wasn't even a plan, really it was more of a prayer. We had stolen just enough of their technology to be dangerous, but nothing we had would match their firepower. Every moment, every move, felt like we were walking closer to the edge of a cliff, where one wrong step could send us tumbling to our doom. And yet, we kept going, because there was nothing left but this final fight. I stood with my team, looking at the massive ships hovering in the sky like dark giants, and felt the silence in the air. We had no guarantees, no backup plans. All we had were each other, and the knowledge that humanity's future rested on our shoulders. Ready? I asked, my voice steady, but my insides were anything but calm. They nodded, grim and resolute. We had all seen the horrors, all watched our world crumble. We had all lost something, someone. But we were still here, still alive, and still fighting. That's what set us apart from the invaders, our sheer will to live, to survive, to never stop fighting. We boarded the ships, our modified crafts clunky and hastily repaired, but functional. The engine hummed to life, and for a brief moment, I allowed myself to feel a surge of hope. We were taking the fight to them. No more hiding. No more waiting for death to come. It was time for the aliens to feel the sting of humanity's wrath. As we approached the alien fleet, I felt my heart pounding in my chest. The ships were enormous, larger than any warship we had ever built. Their technology seemed otherworldly, smooth and sleek, but I knew their size meant nothing. We were 1,000 times more determined than they were. We had to be. We're almost there, I said, my voice shaking slightly. Once we breach their shields, we go straight for the command center. Stay sharp, and don't engage unless you have to. The alien ships didn't wait for us to get close. They opened fire the second we entered their firing range. The first blast sent shockwaves through our ship, rattling us to the core. But we kept moving forward, dodging, weaving. I gripped the controls, my hands tight, focused. They were relentless. Every shot felt like it might be our last, but we pushed on. I could hear the crew members shouting orders, the sound of their voices steady despite the chaos. We weren't backing down. We reached the heart of the fleet, the command center, their most heavily fortified position. The moment we breached the outer defenses, the full force of the aliens' retaliation hit us. The air was filled with explosions, energy blasts, and the sound of metal ripping apart. Our ships took hit after hit, but we held course. Then, everything seemed to happen at once. Deploy the charges, I yelled as the enemy ship's core came into view. Our teams scrambled, planting the explosives, making sure everything was in place. But we were running out of time. The alien ships were closing in, their forces converging on us, trying to crush us once and for all. I glanced over at my team, the faces I had come to know so well, some grim, some steeled with determination. We had all come from different walks of life, different backgrounds. But we had become something more than just survivors. We had become a unit, a force that was capable of taking on the impossible. Everyone, get out. I screamed into the comms, but it was too late. The ship was taking too much damage. A massive explosion tore through our hull, sending the ship into a tailspin. I felt my stomach lurch, but we couldn't afford to panic. We were close. So close. I fought to keep control of the ship, directing it toward the core of the alien fleet. I had no idea if anyone would survive the blast, but we had done everything we could. We had fought as hard as we could. The only thing left was to make sure the mission was completed. Hold on, I shouted, bracing for impact. The final blast hit, and everything went white. I woke to the sound of static. My vision blurred, but I could make out shapes, human shapes surrounding me, pulling me from the wreckage. The mission, the blast, I didn't know if it had worked. But then, the signals started to come through. The alien fleet had fallen. The command center had been destroyed. We had won. But the cost was heavy. The ship was gone. My crew was scattered. Some lost in the explosion. Others wounded, but alive. The victory we had longed for came at a price none of us were prepared for. We had reclaimed Earth, but the scars ran deep. The cities were still in ruins. The landscape altered beyond recognition. But humanity had survived. And as I sat in the wreckage, watching the smoke clear from the fallen ships, I realized something. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something new. The war was over, but the struggle to rebuild had just begun.